Well, of course.
But we're live now.
Yes, we are, because I've just got a notification. Because what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I heard someone mention about not being able to stream in Brave.
No, I always use Google for this shit.
Yeah, because I'm streaming. I'm in Brave.
Oh, you're streaming from Brave now?
Yeah. Because Brave's based on Chrome, so there was no reason it wouldn't be able to.
Well, it was blocked from Brave now.
Yeah. Brave's based on Chrome, so.
I thought it was blocked though. I really forgot to turn down the sound of my stream, obviously, because I always make that mistake.
Oh, for goodness sake. What are you doing, you stupid computer?
Anyway, so basically, this is the new concept I was thinking about, and I'm glad that we can set it up. I haven't really spoken to Jon about it that much, but Jon came up with, "Oh, this is an interesting topic to talk about," and I said, "Okay, let's do it now." That's basically it, because I was thinking about maybe doing a second stream. I did mention that before, didn't I?
You did. Well, I mentioned it the other night, and I thought, well, this might be a good time to try it.
Yeah. So the whole idea is doing it shorter. What do we think is a decent time? An hour?
Well, I mean, with these things, it's you know, a bit of a play it by ear.
Play it by ear. We're not going to make it too long though, because I kind of do want to make these streams rewatchable. I mean, my normal stream is very good, and I have taken the time once and again to watch long streams. But let me put it like this: I'm a great fan of Sargon, and if he has a 2-hour stream, I hear the highlights when I hear them, because I'm not going to watch.
Yeah. No, I mean. It's a tricky thing, because I think you can only really discuss a subject for so long, and we prove that every week by going off topic and and it's fine if it's just a sort of like a chatty thing, you know, and with different people joining in, it always had to lift different flavour every time. But if it's just you and me, then obviously people are going to get really bored very quickly.
Well, maybe. I mean,
you know what I mean. It's like if we just go on and on and on
from time and time. Yeah. There is that. But yeah, let's try not to go too much off stream to see how much we can stay on topic. We've got 2 topics for today, and if all goes well, it might actually be interesting.
Well, the introduction is I came up with an article, and Bodwin came up with an article, both from the UK, both about religious tensions, one being a good sign of sanity, and the other being a case of extreme insanity.
Well, yeah. So which do we start with, mate?
Well, I think we have to tease them with the insanity later. I think we start with the good news.
So we're going to start with the BBC.
We're going to start. No, so we're going to start with that one. Yes, I wouldn't have put it like that, because saying sanity and BBC in the same sentence, you can oxymoron.
True that. I'll share the page so people can see what the hell we're on about.
Because really, it's about the government actually doing something good for a change.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
1 sec. What is it? 1 moment. Can you start reading?
I will. I'll start just giving a explanation why I thought this might be an interesting topic. Okay. Basically, what it is that when it does say in the article. Silly me.
You want me to scroll up or down?
Oh God, I'm just trying to think what it was. there was something that happened a few. Oh yes, that was it. There was this Pakistani woman who was a Christian who tried to claim asylum in the UK after basically half of Pakistan wanted to kill her for blasphemy, even though she was cleared of blasphemy in the Pakistani court.
I forgot her name.
Yeah, but it's in the article. But the point is that prompted the Foreign Secretary to do an inquiry into the level of Christian persecution in the world.
That's the one.
And basically the reports come out and it's shocking, the results. And it's been brought into obvious recent emphasis through the Sri Lanka attacks. But the report was commissioned months ago before the Sri Lanka attacks. So they're like just an unfortunate confirmation of what the report says. And it's basically saying that of all the world's religions, Christians are the most persecuted. But what is interesting, what really struck my attention was what the Foreign Secretary, Mr. Hunt, said about political correctness, or SJWs, which is that discussion of the level of Christian persecution was being interfered with, prevented by what he called political correctness, or I would call the progressive stack. That is, and he even says, because Christianity was perceived as the religion of the colonialists and the oppressor, and he's saying, well, actually, it's not the colonialists and the oppressors, but the poorest of people who are being persecuted.
Yeah. This is one of the things I find funny, because whenever they talk about people being persecuted, first off, they always look at what's happening in the Western world, and Christians don't seem to be persecuted in the Western world, which is not really fair. Even though I'm an atheist myself, I have to admit that our media is pretty much turned against Christianity. But what I find funny is that then they see stuff happening to the Jewish parts of our societies or the Muslim parts of our society, and then that automatically becomes because of white nationalism. And if you look into the hatred going towards the Jews, that doesn't come from Christians, it doesn't come from white people. But the one group that it does come from is the other group you're not supposed to talk about.
Yes.
It's almost as if it's okay to blame a certain group, and if they then are a victim, it's okay to ignore that.
Well, it's almost as if there's a predefined answer, and whatever the question is, that's the answer. The evil white imperialist male.
Yeah, because all Christians must be white, or something like that.
Well, no, I mean any issue, literally any issue, that's the answer. Who did it? The answer is evil white males, even if there weren't any in sight.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, because if we look at it, if we look at, for example, Sri Lanka, which is being mentioned in this one, if we look at Nigeria, but also if we look at Syria, if we look at Iran, if we look at Iraq, if we look at Turkey, Christians are, in all of these cases, the victim.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not to mention that. But 90% of these victims, even though they are Christian, aren't white.
Well, that is what the report's saying. It's saying it's actually some of the poorest and most vulnerable in the world.
Yeah.
And they're being ignored because of this fiction, basically, of white imperialism. I'm not saying that we didn't colonize, but the way it's portrayed doesn't bear scrutiny from an accurate historical perspective.
Well, that's another thing. If we do look at white imperialism, you're English, I'm Dutch. Our ancestors had quite a finger in the whole imperialistic thing. Now, the English were slightly better at that than the Dutch, but the Dutch were pretty good at it as well. The societies that they colonized and had imperial control over actually grew.
And we left democracies, and
Yeah, one could actually argue, and it's going to be hard to argue against, the mere demonstrable proof that those places that were colonized and were part of an empire actually grew because of it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, because it's like, do you remember that American woman who was on Sagan of the Cat's channel? And she said, "Oh, I'm Indian, and when you go to India, everyone wants to be like the Europeans."
Yeah,
like the British. And then you hear another Indian woman that interviewed, and she's saying, "Oh no, we hate the English." Well, that just tells me that, surprise, surprise, India, like everywhere else, is not a monolith with homogeneous views. That depends fundamentally. If you're in this class, you'll have one view of it, and if you're in that class, you might have a different view of it.
Yeah. And what's even more interesting, or worse, or whatever you want to call it, is that by how do you call it? Well, as I said, empirical standards. If we look at what happened in India, if we look at what happened in South Africa or Zimbabwe or all these places, or even countries in the middle of Africa, like Liberia. Liberia was colonized, controlled by America. These countries were doing great whilst they were under control of the oppressor. And as soon as the oppressor said, "You know what? You're right. You deserve your freedom," these countries go to shit. And there's something seriously wrong with our society if we still blame white people for saying, "You know what? You're right. You should be free. Be free." And then complain that because they're free, they're not managing. And this isn't even about religion, Christianity or not. This is about the double standard people seem to be measuring reality with.
Well, the problem seems to be there are groups of people who will only see the bad in history, and there are groups of people who only see the good in history. And the fact is, it was a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
And the worst thing is that in England and then Britain's adventures abroad, shall we say, they lasted a long time, hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Only in the last part, less than 100 years, was it an empire. Only in the last part, in that 100 years, did we consciously go out to gain territory. Everything before that was an accident, literally in the case of India, because the British didn't conquer India, a private company did. Piece by piece, in reaction to events as they unfolded. They didn't set out and say, "Oh, we want a big market, we're going to conquer India." It was like, "Oh, we're under attack, we need our soldiers to defend us. Oh, what's the best way to defeat an attacker? Oh, I know, we'll counterattack."
If we look, for example, at what happened in places like, well, seriously though, look at places like, and I'm going to use the English empire for a bit. Look at what happened in South Africa. One of the main reasons they didn't have slavery was because of the English. This is true for a lot of British colonies. They didn't allow slavery within their colonies. Countries that reverted back to slavery. So how is this because of the white imperialist?
Well, obviously.
I had and it was slightly off topic, obviously, because we're good at that. I had a video clip once, and I can't find it real fast. I've been looking for it for a second, about black people complaining to Chinese investors, and these. I think it's in Zimbabwe. I can't remember. I think it's in Zimbabwe. And complaining about how the English blah 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 bad, blah 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 terrible. They created all the infrastructure, and it needs to be replaced. And the Chinese guy was kind of like, why? I mean, they left you a fully functioning country. Why isn't it a fully functioning country anymore? But no one complains because this is a Chinaman asking it. I mean, would have been a white guy. Oh my God! Obviously, we can't have that. But it's so silly. And if we look at this article, I'm going to go back up a little bit because we were talking about Asia Bibi a moment ago. I mean, she's not allowed asylum in the UK because it might cause problems on the streets of the UK. Because I'm not sure if they say it in this article. I can't remember they said it in this article, but I can remember back in the day because it's a few months old already. That one of the reasons she didn't get asylum in the UK was because the Muslims in the UK might protest. And I'm like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, it's unfortunately you only have to look at the partition of Ireland to see the British history of these things is very curious. This group, they can have armed rebellion and we'll give in to them. That group, we will crush them.
Yeah, it's now don't get me wrong, I think crushing rebellion is, funny enough, not a bad idea, but oppressing people is. This is double standard in that, perhaps. But yeah, I prefer to have a country where everyone abides by the same rule of law.
That's long got, mate. We have so many discriminatory laws. It's appalling, and people keep pushing for more.
And that's the weird part, and that's funny enough. The second article. So should we go there now?
Okay.
Because in Scotland, they adopt a formal definition of Islamophobia. So basically, they are bringing back. Well, they're not bringing it back because the UK always had blasphemy laws, but we
haven't always had blasphemy laws. I will thank you very much.
You had them for the longest time.
Yes, we had some for a time, and then we got rid of them. So they are bringing them back.
No, I thought they didn't get rid of them.
Oh, we did.
They stopped enforcing them.
No, we got rid of them. I'm
really
sure. I'll have to do an internet search. Bear with me.
Well, I'll do it for you. Blasphemy law UK. I can't type for shit. Blasphemy laws UK.
The confusing thing is, we might be one country, but our laws are not the same everywhere.
True that. Okay, Wikipedia.
Okay.
Because
in England and Wales, blasphemy was repealed in 2008.
Okay. So now we go to Scotland. Do we see Scotland somewhere? Yes, here it is. The law of Scotland, as it originally stood, punished blasphemy was death, imprisonment. The last prosecution of blasphemy was in 1843. When did they repeal it at any time? The Human Rights Act of 1989 applies in Scotland as well, and therefore similar challenges to existing Scottish blasphemy laws. It would seem that Scotland still has them. Or I'm going too fast and I'm missing the fact that it said they don't have it anymore. But it would seem they still have blasphemy laws in Scotland.
Okay, hang on. Do a better search. Scotland. Okay, yes, you're correct. SNP commits to repeal of blasphemy law in Scotland in an article of the 27th of March 2018.
So yeah, Scotland still has its blasphemy laws, and they just reinforced them. Well done, Scotland. And Northern Ireland still has blasphemy laws as well, but they are currently trying to get them repealed. So yeah, there's that. Hi there, Maddie. Renovatio. Britain really needs a formal constitution, in my humble opinion. Yes, we agree. There's need to be protection of British people, rights in their own lands. That may, but that's the thing, though, and this is also what John said a moment ago. Different states within the UK have different laws, and in all fairness, I wasn't aware of that because I knew that blasphemy laws were still a thing. But yeah, I was talking about Scotland, and I kind of overlooked the fact that in England, blasphemy laws aren't a thing. Did I suitably?
Yeah, I wanted to make the joke because I literally left Scotland between 3 and 4 yesterday afternoon. So my joke is I got out just in time.
Yes. Well, going back to the article we were wanting to talk about. So Scotland still has blasphemy laws. So they're going to add to their blasphemy laws. Stand by for blasphemy laws. Yay. The Muslim Council of Scotland welcomes the adoption of the definition of Islamophobia by all political parties. Okay, I'm not going to read all the rest of it. This is a horrendous document. And this is that document. So, and I'm so amazed by this. The definition of Islamophobia includes referring to Muhammad as a pedophile for having sex with a 9-year-old girl.
So they're going to ban the hadith then?
Yes, that's the thing, though. There is. Which one is it? I think it's the Hadith Abu Bakr. I could look it up. No, I'm not going to bother. But yeah, no, it's in their official doctrine. It says that this is the case. So now I have this question, and I'm curious at what people think. So I'm looking forward to read up on this, guys, from what you're telling us. I think the problem isn't that we recognize that Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old. The problem is that we call him a pedophile because of it.
Sorry.
Because their own home.
It's insane. It really is insane.
But how wrong am I in assuming this?
Well, no, I mean, okay, what is a paedophile? Well, technically, a paedophile is someone who has sex with prepubescent children. And it's a hemophile, as Alicia reminds us, if they are pubescent children, but still under the age of consent.
Yeah.
So it's a technical description. It is not, these things. It's about. Well, we know that reality doesn't seem to matter anymore to some people, sadly.
I'm sorry, Renovatio. Ireland recently repealed our blasphemy provision in our constitution, but it was a trap. The 1999 Supreme Court decision of Cornwall effectively made blasphemy incapable of being used. Well, they didn't repeal it either. That's the thing. I mean, being incapable of being used is merely lawyer talk for saying, well, maybe. But if there's another lawyer who'll come up with something, yeah, but it's still in the book, so therefore, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no, but indeed, ironically, the recent repeal of blasphemy in our referendum now permits our progressive controlled government to expand hate speech and with that bring back blasphemy laws. Well, I didn't know you were a lawyer, but then I assume that you either agree or disagree with me. And I'm curious what you think, because I think by not repealing it, you will always leave it in the book so it can always be brought back. But I'm curious what you think on that, Renovatio. And we are
I love the your pronunciation of an Irish name.
What? It's not Renovatio.
Well, no, he could be, but he's Irish, so that's all I'm saying.
How would you? I mean,
Renovatio.
Oh, come on. Seriously?
No, not seriously. We were supposed to be having a laugh, remember?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But no, the first line, the definition of Islamophobia includes referring to Muhammad as a pedophile for having sex with a 9-year-old. So now we're no longer to call him a pedophile. Because the rest of that statement, Muhammad having sex with a 9-year-old, is from their own holy texts.
And the paedophile bitch is from the definition of the term.
Yes. So it's this is political correctness 101. Yeah. It's not that you're wrong, but you're not allowed to say it.
Yeah.
If you cannot have banter with your neighbors, they will distrust you. Makes sense, Davey. Makes sense. And Haida Warped, by the way, and Haida Daisy. I didn't say Haida Daisy yet.
Yeah, well, we're talking about Scottish insanity for a change.
Yeah.
That's interesting that Renovatio says about the law being so ill-defined, because that seems to be the way all laws are going. How do you know he was engaging in misogyny as a hate crime? Well, I didn't like the way he looked at me.
No, but that is.
I'm not making that up.
But maybe this is also what renovatio means. I mean, the current how do you call it referendum that they're working with opens the door for SJW and hate speech laws, and hate speech laws are in effect blasphemy laws. It's just not religious blasphemy. It's now all sorts of blasphemy, which is still a problem.
But well, it's basically, it's authoritarian control. That's what these laws are. They're like, we get to tell you what you meant and whether it was a joke or not, Mr. Meekin.
Indeed. I mean, you had a dog doing the Nazi salute, something that even the Nazis didn't prosecute someone for, because there was a Norwegian dog owner who also had a dog doing the Nazi salutes, and then the Nazis were like, yeah, that's bad, isn't it? Yeah, but we're not going to care. Yeah. But obviously Scotland had to defend, I don't know, the Nazis. I mean, you'd think it's insulting to see a dog doing a Nazi salute, right? I mean, it's taking the mickey out of the Nazi salute, right?
Yeah.
And the Scottish government are against a dog taking the mickey out of the Nazi salute. Does that then mean that the Scottish government and the Scottish judicial system feels that they need to defend the Nazis?
Well, if their feelings are hurt, obviously.
Yeah, but
hurt feelings are the real crime now.
But it must have been the Nazis' feeling that got hurt, because who is going to take a dog serious? So I can't believe that there's a Jew out there that says, oh no, that dog did something and now I'm feeling hurt. Wouldn't it be the Nazis that say, hey, you're taking our religion and you're making a mickey out of it? Or am I now overthinking the situation?
Yeah, well, I think they don't think. That's the problem.
Well, there is that. But I wanted to go through the list because there's something really funny. Because contemporary examples of Islamophobia, including but not limited to, are accusing Muslims of inventing or exaggerating Islamophobia. So basically, when you say to someone, hey, Muhammad, come on, man, don't be a bitch, then he can say, oh, you're being Islamophobic. And I can't say, come on, man, you were being a bitch. Because he's exaggerating Islamophobia, and I'm not allowed to point that out. Because that's what that says, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is not being my first language. I thought I understood that one like that.
Well, no, because you've got to understand that there's this whole strain coming out of academia of all places that is now calling reason and rationality and science parts of the evil, oppressive white culture. It's like, they're basically they are trying to define it so that whatever we say is true and whatever you say is wrong, says us.
Yeah, it's weird though. And there was another one. Where was it? Denying Muslim populations the right to self-determination by claiming that the existence of an independent Palestine or Kashmir is a terrorist endeavor. And I'm like, yeah, no. By saying Palestine or Kashmir can't exist, this is anti-Muslim because there are no other Muslim countries.
Plus, there are also Christian Palestinians.
Well, we know that Palestina before the Muslims was Christian. We know that Kashmir before the Muslims.
But now there are Christian Palestinians. I'm not talking about 1400 years ago. I'm talking about now.
There always have. Well, since Christianity, there have been.
Yeah, but so what I'm saying is to use a specious argument about, if you're against Christian, you're against Islam. Sorry, against Palestine, you're against Islam. It's bollocks because that's their level of dishonesty. Because Palestinians are not one religion.
Well, and the thing is, if we look at Palestinians in Israel, then there are those in the West Bank and in Gaza, but there are Palestinians outside of those two areas as well, and they're actually having a good life. But if we look at Kashmir has been in a more or less civil war situation since the breaking up of India by the Muslims, which created Pakistan. East Pakistan, which later became Bangladesh, and they're still fighting over Kashmir.
Well, you know why Bangladesh stopped being East Pakistan?
Yeah, because Pakistan didn't want them.
No, because of the fighting between the two.
Well,
that's how peaceful that certain religion is.
Yes. Well, it's a religion of pieces, not a religion of peace. But the next one, applying double standards by requiring Muslim behaviors that are not expected or demanded of any other group in society. For example, loyalty tests. But I kind of have a problem with that when people are in favor of Sharia and part of our society. I'd rather know that they're not in favor of Sharia. Then again, it is unfair to ask a Muslim to come out and say that they're truly not in favor of Sharia, because...
Well, yeah, exactly. Death sentence.
So, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to ask you to keep talking for a while because I really need a fast bio break.
Okay. Okay. I want to get a little annoyed at Michael Keller. He says that Palestine wasn't fixed on a religion before the British reorganized the area to found Israel. I think you need to look into the history of the fighting between the British and the Israelis in Palestine to put it in that terms, because we resisted the founding of Israel. So the fact that we would just unilaterally reorganize the area to create Israel and then just peacefully hand it over is kind of at odds with history. I mean, as these things go. Oops, I think he's back.
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, we heard.
I'm sorry. No, there's another thing. I mean, and no, I'm not going to piss in the kitchen sink. It's too high. I have to get a chair or something to stand on something. Why are Muslims fleeing into the West to avoid the lifestyle they had in the Middle East? Well, that's the thing, though. and I didn't pee on my hands either. So that's an old joke. There's 3 people go into the toilet, and the first one came out and washes his hands and washes it again and washes it again. And then there's a second one who comes out and he washes his hands with a very little bit of water. And the first one is like, yeah, well, I've always learned to be really clean. And the other one's like, yeah, but I also learned how to be economic. And the third one comes out and basically says, I learned not to pee on my hands. Oh, come on, that's funny.
Okay.
For fuck's sake. Yeah, nice for letting me hang out there, mate.
Hey, look, I am prepared to be treated just the same.
Fair enough.
Hey, you know, we have to create the comedy where we can.
True that. But having
I'm sorry. I'd also just heard from Carlos, because I've asked him how his dad was doing.
Oh, okay.
Because he did that stream a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
His father's. What did he say? His dad tripped in hospital and slightly injured his foot.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
So I asked him if his father was a bit better. He said yes, he's home. But our NHS hospital has left him worse in many ways than when he entered.
Yeah, that's the downside with, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, you know, every hospital is its own mini thing, you know?
Yeah, shit can happen everywhere.
Well, you know, you get good ones and bad ones is what I'm trying to say.
True that. Well, Carlos, here's us thinking of you and your father, mate.
Okay. Yes, and I was. Yeah. Never mind. Nothing.
Anyway, so now that we've seen our Scottish piece, because the Scottish Parliament is part of the British Parliament, right?
No.
Okay, how does it work?
Okay, we have a British Parliament, which includes people from Scotland.
Yeah.
And there's a Scottish Parliament, which only includes people from Scotland and has a limited remit to govern certain facets of the Scottish nation independently. So what they do is on them. So, for instance, I was talking to my nephew a couple of days ago, and he pointed out that as he's in Scotland, he had his higher education for free because that's the Scottish policy. It is not the English and thus Welsh policy.
Okay. Well, because this is basically why I guess the same is true for you, why I'd like to tie these two together. Because if we look at this one, where was it? If one, no, that one. Well, I'll take this one. The persecution of Christians in part of the world is near genocide level, according to the report ordered by the Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt. So they recognize that, in all fairness, Christianity is off way worse than Islam. And they're treating Islam this way. So how long will it take before Christians in the UK stand up and say, well, it's our turn now?
Well, I don't think that'll happen because at the end of the day, the Muslims are, I mean, yes, the Muslims themselves have a tendency to a pattern of behavior. But the fact is we have that SJW culture, which drives politics in this country in that respect.
But it is kind of funny because there are definitely areas when we can talk that the prosecution of Christians is genocide. Obviously, we saw it at the turn of the 20th century with the Armenians in Turkey, but we saw it with the Yazidis in ISIS-controlled lands only a few years ago. I mean, I'm sorry, but that was by any measurement, a genocide.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, they're Easter worshippers. Well, maybe that. But the thing is, there is something really weird when a government can say, okay, you know what? Recognizing the holy doctrine of a religion is now equal to blasphemy.
Well, yeah, but it's this line of reasoning. I am not going to use the word logic because that would be such an utter distortion of the term. Is there a line of reasoning?
Yeah. Okay, line of reasoning, yeah.
That, okay, there are these tensions, and the way to address the tensions is to stop words. Like that has ever worked. In the history of our species, has stopping words ever made a difference?
No, it's true, though. And it's scary that they actually call out for this. This is what they want. I don't understand this.
No, I just think they're that thick. Honestly, I think they're that thick. They think that if they stop people saying the mean things, somehow that will stop people thinking the mean thing. And you and I know the opposite, right? It'll just make people even more angry, and it'll make people even more convinced that they have what's the word? That they are right in being resentful of that body of people.
Well, it is frustrating, and I use the word frustrating with care, so to speak. I'm really thinking about what's the best word. But it's frustrating that we can see certain aspects of our society, but we're not allowed to say, hey, wait a second, this is weird. And at the same time, they are using these same arguments against us because, hey, listen, if you say something is not clear or not open or not safe or not fair or blah, 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 then all of a sudden you're a supremacist or a phobe.
No, you see, it's the oppressive stack. So you'll simultaneously get a feminist screaming, we have every right to hate men, while simultaneously shitting on the whole men's right movement as angry men. It's like, oh, hang on, I thought you said being angry is okay. No, apparently it's only okay when you do it, not when anyone else does it towards you.
Yeah.
And that's the mentality. It's not, oh, what's the principle here? How do we apply it evenly? It's okay when we do it and not okay when you do it. Yeah. Literally, that's all it is.
Rules for me, but not for thee.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that is the long-standing tradition of British politics, because we used to have a formally unequal society. Just ask the Americans. Why did you leave Britain?
Well,
because we had a formally unequal society.
Yeah. Unfortunately, America's back at that very unequal society. So
it's Jordan Peterson's point. Hierarchies have a tendency to develop, and they have a tendency to become tyrannical. Yeah.
It's completely off topic, obviously, because that's how we usually end our stuff. But if you look at the politics, they call for something one day, and then a few weeks later, that one thing they called for is absolutely biting them in their ass. Yeah, no, but that's not what we meant. It's for example, if we look at Venezuela is a great example of socialism going to shits once again. No, it's not real socialism. Yeah, but a few years ago, all politicians in the Western world that are pro-socialism used Venezuela as an example of how great socialism is.
And anyone believe them?
Well, back then, no, but now, yeah, it's still socialism. Whether we believe them that it was great,
yeah, but no. But this is partly the problem because it's not one-sided. One of the things that frustrates me is when you actually abstract these behaviours out, everyone's engaging in the same behaviour. It's just, how it manifests in terms of the relative balance of power. So, for instance, in America, you had the longest time, you had the Christian fundamentalists doing insane things, and now it's the anti-Christian fundamentalists doing the insane things.
Yeah, but I'm wondering.
And the solution is to stop doing insane things.
Yeah.
Why is that so hard?
Well, it's the same. It's the same principle that feminists who keep calling out that they demand equality because they haven't had equality for so long. Therefore, now they don't want equality, but they want to have more than men had, even though they always had more than men had.
Well, it used to be in balance. That's my view. Though it's the problem is you get this conflation of the individual and the group, right? So in any situation, you'll find individuals under any comparison, right, where one is worse off than the other in their instance, okay?
Yeah.
And so you get a movement like feminism where they look at all the instances where women were worse off and they say, therefore, women were worse off, ignoring all the cases where they weren't.
But that's the thing, though. And if we look back, in most Western countries, mind you, I'm saying Western countries, but in most Western countries, the position of women wasn't worse than the position of men. Now, obviously, the position of women was worse off than the position of wealthy men, but
no, but that's the point. That's the point. The position of wealthy women wasn't worse off than the position of wealthy men. It was just different.
Yeah, it's weird. Anyway, we are getting off topic.
Good.
And this is interesting, but the idea was to make these live thingies shorter so that they have some more rewatch value. So I'm thinking maybe we should call it quits for now.
Really?
Yeah.
We started.
I know, but we've done both of the topics.
No. We haven't milked them for their full comedic value, or some rants, or
Yeah, but I wanted to make.
And besides which, the chat are having a great time amongst themselves, and I don't want to cut them off.
Oh, all right then.
No, I mean, you see, this is what I like about streams. Okay, so you have the conversation, and sometimes that drives what's happening, or you have the chat, and today the chat is definitely where the action is at.
So basically we're not interesting, they are interesting.
No, that's fine.
No, it's okay.
No, that's fine. It's like,
well, but sorry, go on, mate, go on.
No, I was just going to wonder why, how ham, cheese, and bread from farm foods fits into anything. I know you're listening, Warp Reflection. I'm just saying that you're being far more entertaining.
And thank you, Michael Keller. I have no idea what the two of you were talking about.
In Swiss, they have a culture all of their own. I mean, 4 languages, their whole canton system, which I will not even pretend to understand. Okay, and simultaneously, a sea of neutrality amongst the warring Europeans. And let's be honest, if Europeans are known for one thing, it's for fighting each other almost continuously. You're welcome to come on, Renovatio, and tell us how to pronounce your name.
Yeah, sure. Renovatio, if you want in, mate, come and try to stand up for your oppressed, what's it? Warped Reflection. A sheep she doesn't even shop at Waitrose. What's Waitrose?
Waitrose is a nut market supermarket chain in the UK. And Davey, I don't shop at Waitrose because there isn't one in my area. It's too down market.
What? I never heard of it. Sorry, I can't.
Yeah, I'm sorry. 15th century, Michael. That's ancient history. Come on, keep up. We kicked some shades of shit out of the French and vice versa for several hundred years, and then it was the Germans when the French got a bit of a pushover.
That's a lot of you. Well, I do my shopping at Lidl.
I shop at Tesco because it's a mile away and open 24 hours. I can go at 3 in the morning when no other buggers there because I'm anti-social.
Well, that is useful. There are very little shops open 24 hours here. I think I've got two Lidls within driving range. One is... Well, they're both slightly more than a kilometre away, so maybe a mile as well.
Lidl, part of the German plan to take over Europe.
Yes, well, not sure. I mean, first you had Aldi.
Yeah, we've got one of those. I haven't got a Lidl.
Send me a link, Mod Wayne, and I'll jump on if that's cool. Yeah, that's cool, mate. Stupid me.
Well, Swiss Guards apparently were, because I was looking it up because the Swiss Guards obviously are the guards of the Pope, but apparently from the 15th century, Swiss Guards were the guards of all royalty.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, because I looked it up because I was being nosy, because I am, and it said, yeah, the Swiss Guards were the people who royalty of Europe. Because let's be honest, none of the royalty of Europe were particularly of that nation, as a rule.
I'm not sure. Davey, I'm sorry, mate. I'm trying to send you a link. Do I have you on Twitter or anything like that?
Well, he is in your Discord, even though he doesn't use it.
Well, there is that. So how do I send him a linky?
I can send him it on Skype.
Well, that would be easier then. You do it. Good. That's me problem solving.
It's not you problem solving. It's me problem solving.
No. How do you call that?
You didn't delegate. I volunteered.
Yes.
I think that worked.
Ooh, Carlos actually retweeted the Hangout link for the.
Yeah, I did tell him we were streaming.
Yeah, old fart and older fart talk about the news. I do think it's a good title.
Yeah,
it covers all the bases.
Well, it covers the fundamentals, I would have said.
Yeah. And no one is wondering who the older of the two farts is.
Yeah, that's me.
I said no one was wondering.
I know, I'm just trying to get in there ahead of any jokes.
But Renovatio, did you want to join in, mate?
No, he said he hasn't got a mic.
Oh, right. I missed that one. Sorry. Poor lad. And Irish and not having a mic. Well, life must be hard on you, mate. Oh, sorry. Did I sleep through the weekend? Random stream Modwayne. Well, yes, I need to talk this. I was talking about this earlier in our weekly Wednesday hangout, that I was thinking about planning a second hangout, smaller, faster, streamlined, And then Jon came up with a topic, and I was like, oh, and I had another topic, and they were kind of linked. So he said, you know what? Let's do it now.
Yeah.
And so we did.
With about 2 minutes preparation.
Which is more than I usually do. Fair is fair.
No, I mean, it's like you said, we'll stream, and then 2 minutes later, you'd set up the stream.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. So, and I talk. If you ever have the time to re-listen to the whole stream, I am curious. It was supposed to be a bit more streamlined, but then when I said, okay, now it's time to call it quits, Jon was like, no, we're having...
No, there's a bit more streamlined, and there's cut, extremely short. And can I just say, Anatak, you should enjoy it because it'll give you a nice comparison to the lunacy in your country to have a laugh at the lunacy in ours or mine.
Well, yes, not mine. No, not mine. Well, pretty stupid in the Netherlands as well. Don't get me started, for fuck's sake. But yeah, there is that. But hi there, fellas. You're now with us. Hi there.
Yes, hi, Davey.
How are you both? You all right?
Speak.
Yeah, we're doing all right.
Good.
With this fast, off the cuff chatting about. Actually, it's basically what we always do on a Wednesday as well, isn't it? It's not that different.
I can't hear Davey.
You can't hear Davey?
No.
I'm still here.
I can hear you.
Yeah, that's Davey.
Hello, 1 2 1 2.
I can't
Hello,
hear Davey.
Jon.
I know. I've talked to Davey. I know what he sounds like.
Well, you didn't hear the 1 2 1 2 bit of him.
Nope.
That is weird.
How about the chat? Did they hear it?
Can the chat hear Davey? We can all hear from all three of you. Yeah, that's what I thought. It's weird that you can't hear us. You can't hear him.
Yeah.
I think Jon's just having us on.
I honestly don't know what's happening, but maybe this is why Brave isn't good for Hangouts.
Maybe try relogging, see if that'll work. Jon?
Or I could just start again in Chrome.
There is a voice behind the face in an attack, yeah.
Words to that effect.
Well, Davey, I think you have been with us once before, haven't you?
No, but I was on a Megan stream a long time ago.
All right. But listen, Omegon is big. I mean, you'll not get famous from being on my stream. There is that. Jon, we can see your mug, mate.
Yeah.
Big is really, really subjective in terms of the internet, though. I mean, you have PewDiePie at what? We're talking like 90 million now.
96.
Whoa.
Yeah. Biggest single channel out there, and YouTube hates him.
Yeah, they're going to call the biggest hitters on their platform. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. YouTube is doing everything they can to die, and then they complain that they're dying. It's amazing.
Well, it's crazy how they capitulate to the mainstream. The old guard of the reportable news type thing.
Especially if you think the whole reason why YouTube has grown is because people don't like the old guard.
I don't think YouTube understands that, though.
Well, I think they do, but I think they started to believe their own SJW bullshit.
That's true.
And they actually think that people, how do you say this, understand or disagree, or what you want to call it. That's the whole go woke, go broke thing is something that people say now, but
I think YouTube want to stay in the good graces of the media. I mean, you look at it, the smear campaigns with Sargon and Count Dankula, and UKIP in general, to be honest. And there's the immediate reaction that they're going to sink in the polls, and we've just had our local elections, and they haven't done very well. So,
can I just point something out about that?
Yeah, of course.
Because I was watching the TV, the BBC last night, and they pointed out that so there's two factors. The first was this group of councillors were last elected in 2015.
That's true.
When on the same day as the general election, and thus it was heavily biased to that result when UKIP did very well. In the meantime, UKIP has shrunk massively. So of all the seats they were standing for, that they had to defend, they didn't even defend a lot of them because they haven't got the people anymore to do so.
Well, that's right. They were nearly dead in 2017.
Yeah. So the fact is they did badly because they lost a lot of seats that they weren't even trying to defend. But they, for instance, they won 3 seats in Sunderland. So it's not that.
Yeah. I know. I'm in contact with a guy on Twitter, and he's a Sunderland boy, and he's well proud of his people.
And so the problem is that these results you can't read them because there's so many factors involved, and if a party isn't putting up candidates, no one's going to be able to vote for them, and then you can't say, oh well, the vote is down because of course it's down.
In all fairness, I liked the idea of Sargon and
Adam.
Well, Adam, obviously, yeah, and Count Dankula. I like the idea of them trying to make it in modern politics, but I was like, yeah, they're big names for us. But a lot of people don't know them, and the media is lying about them, and make all sorts of. So I didn't expect them to do that well, to be honest.
Well, no, you don't conflate it. The election yesterday was not the election Sargon's standing in.
No, because yesterday was the
council election.
Yeah, council election. This is where Adam was running in.
Mm-hmm. But he didn't stand to win. He stand purely to be the first UKIP candidate in the council.
Yeah.
Here's my problem, though. I don't know how far the YouTube influence extends to the rest of the populace.
It doesn't. But then so many demographics don't. This is the point.
Are we a bubble? That's the thing.
Of course we're a bubble. That's what I'm saying. Every self-creating community is a bubble by definition. But so you put your arguments for yourself.
So then you have to measure your bubble against every other bubble, I suppose.
No, but why measure?
The spheres of influence.
No, but why measure? You just do what you can.
And then you get small votes.
Yeah, but that's why Sargon's left the bubble and gone into the real world.
Yeah.
Well, and then you get stupid people like that South African lady that says, I've always...
Don't call her a lady, she's a woman.
She's a ditzy bitch, to be fair, but...
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just have this...
She's not a lady, then. That's the point.
But
well, but I mean, she came across as uninformed and totally ignorant. She didn't do any research.
So that's a win.
Not if she's the average.
Why? She's a win because if she thinks what the average thinks and then her arguments are demolished, the average go, "Oh, I was wrong," because they're not invested in it because it wasn't them on the spot.
Who is the average going?
There is no average. This is the point. The average is it's a concept. It's not. No one is the average. There is no thing as the average person. just a person with average traits. That's not the same thing.
I don't know. I mean, she threw up a lot of arguments, and the ones that concerned me the most were the tax the rich.
Yeah.
It seems to be hitting a chord with a certain class of people. I'm not saying,
of course. Of course.
I'm not saying working class. I'm saying the people who are
the regressive.
The people who are resentful of those who hold power at the moment.
Yeah, the regressives.
The regressives. Yeah, they are. It's not so much.
Right now in England, it's not the regressives. It's those people that are not in Parliament.
Oh, so see, this is the problem. The people who are not in Parliament. I tell you, who's not in Parliament?
Most
the
of us
working class.
Yeah.
And the rich and the middle class. You know?
No. The rich don't need to be, and the middle class are Parliament.
Well, a lot of them are anyway.
No, we are. I mean, if you look, right, so we had 18 years of Conservatives under Margaret Thatcher. She was all about, to be fair, of all the prime ministers I'm aware of, she was actually the only one who actually tried to make working class people better off. I'm not saying she did it correctly, but she had that goal. She wanted them to own their own houses.
There was a bit of tough love there, wasn't there?
She wanted them to become shareholders. She wanted them to have a stake, and that was her view of how to get them to improve people. Then you look at Labour, and they were constantly pandering to the middle class. Constantly.
Yeah, but to be honest, I think they were held ransom by the bleeding unions, you know?
No. The Labour did policy after policy for the middle class. They were held hostage to the middle class, not the working class, the middle class. And guess what? Labour's a middle class party.
Yeah, because if they were a workers' party, then they wouldn't have been focused more on the actual workers.
Well, they'd be pro-Brexit for a start.
I think obviously the polls stated that most people are for Brexit, but obviously our betters, our elders say differently, so we must not go the Brexit route, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, but the point is that they aren't a working class party.
Well,
that's why places like Sunderland happen, because the working people in Sunderland are going, what the fuck? We voted for Brexit, and you bring everything in your power to do the opposite.
And I think everybody should follow Sunderland's example. We need to stand strong against this overturning of Brexit.
Well,
because an exit of any kind has been overturned all this time.
Sorry, I just want to troll Walk Reflection. That's why we want you to fuck off, Walk Reflection, because then you give us a bigger Brexit majority. Sorry, just a joke.
Well, it was the whole UK that voted. You know that, don't you?
Yeah, and she said Scotland isn't for Brexit. And I said, so that's why we want Scotland to fuck off, so that we get to bigger Brexit majority.
You can't have that, because otherwise Walk Reflection will hop the border.
That's all right.
Well, she's always welcome in the Netherlands.
Bugger that. She'll bring 2 kids and a wife in tow. Forget that.
Yeah.
Stay up there. Stay up there.
No.
But anyway, Scotland. If Scotland would leave the European Union, sorry, no, that's not true. If it would leave the United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom would leave the European Union, I am curious whether Scotland would still be able to be part of the European Union, because considering what Carlos said, Spain might very well be against that.
Yeah.
And Spain isn't a small part of the European Union either.
It's not just Spain, though. The accountants in the European Union will turn around and say, no, they're not worth it. Sorry, Walk Reflection, but, Scotland is not pumping out enough for them.
No, I don't think Walk Reflection would be sad that Scotland would be able to go back into the EU.
No, obviously not, because she's got her head screwed on right. But you know,
You heard it first. Click that, Walt.
there's so many blind idiots all over this country. You know, and you know, you use our saviour. You know, I hate to admit that a lot of us are brainwashed.
Well, of course, because people forget that a system of independent countries muddled along reasonably well despite all the wars.
We rubbed shoulders with
All
our
of
neighbours.
history, and then all of a sudden, oh no, we've got to be in this super state in order for things to be okay. And it's like, huh?
Well,
Why?
Oh, sorry, go on, mate.
Well, I've had a lot of forms to fill in today, and the place that I went to had EU stickers everywhere. It's all part funded by the European Monetary Fund and things like that. And all I could think of is, you lying toe rags. The only, you know, this is our refund, our rebate from the money we send to you, and you order us how we use our rebate.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's ridiculous. It is brainwashing in itself.
But we saw this starting, I think, what was it? In 2000 and... I'm going to say 2005, but it really went into overdrive in 2008 when the economic crisis, the monetary crisis, hit the world. They started cracking down on so much reality, and they turned themselves into such a huge authoritarian state that the concept of Europe being an organization to help the different countries improve became a state in itself.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to listen to Yanis Varoufakis, the old Greek finance minister. And he turns around and he said that they have basically turned Greece into a wage slaves.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it is what they want for all Europeans.
2000, do you mean, sorry, I'm going to respond to Michael Keller. Do you mean the vote about the Lisbon Treaty? Well, yes.
Yes.
It started slightly before that, obviously, but the European Union has been an elite movement, well, basically from the start, don't get me wrong, but it seems to have the idea of the people at heart. But then when they got told time and again by the people, we don't want this, they turned more authoritarian time and again. And it's really, really fast during the economical crisis because they felt they had a decent reason to force societies along their will. And this is kind of funny because this is, for example, the Greek situation as well. The Greek financial stress wasn't because they weren't able to pay the banks. It's because the European Union then said to the banks, you know what, we'll pay the banks and then we'll go get the money from the Greeks. That's what started the problems for the Greeks. I mean, being bankrupt, they've been bankrupt before.
5 times.
Yeah, and this is why they were, what was it, triple something. They had triple something stat. So the banks could ask for more rent on their loans, and then eventually there is a risk that they might not get their loans back altogether.
Yep.
And that's what happened.
Well, here's the problem, that the Greek GDP is reliant on 2 industries, pretty much olive oil and tourism. And they don't make an awful lot of money. That's the trouble. So who are you going to go to? Who are you going to give loan shark style loans to? You know, people who own their own houses, but do not really create a lot of wealth.
Yeah, and I have to respond to the chat. I agree with you on Greece as well, Renovatio. The Greek country should never have been allowed into the European Union because even by the numbers they showed before they joined, we knew they couldn't be part of the system. But I think that at the time they chose to let the Greeks in, because whether they let the Greeks in or not wouldn't make a difference. Because if Greece would default on its loans, which they haven't done before in the past, the banks loaning that money would lose out. These banks were mostly German and French banks. And by getting the Greeks into the Eurozone, sorry, not the EU, but the Eurozone. But by getting the Greeks into the Eurozone, the European Union could, enforce that Greeks would then be forced to pay up the debt. Had Greek not been part of the Eurozone, the European Union could not have done what they did.
Yeah, I heard Germany now basically owns Greece.
Yeah.
As I wrote, never trust somebody who will lend you money when they know you can't pay it back.
Yeah.
Hand rubbing intensifies.
Yeah, because it's happened in Britain with the lending for mortgages over and over. The banks will lend more and more money to people, and then the minute those people default, the banks go, "Oh, thank you, I'll take that," and you still owe us, by the way.
But here's what gets me.
Yeah.
When did the UK become a service-based industry?
Mid-80s.
Yeah, that's been for quite a while.
So well into our membership of the EU then.
Well, it was when Thatcher systematically destroyed industry.
Well, I mean, you could
listen. Part of the industry was destroyed because of socialism.
No. I'm not saying she shouldn't have done it. I'm saying that she did, and it was a deliberate policy.
I'm wondering if it wasn't. Let's say the taking of resources by the European Union. I mean,
don't reduce the singular.
Oh, I'm not. It's going to be a multitude of factors, but you have to see about the overlying factor. The overall.
Well, I think the overlying factor was the fact that Britain was fucked in the 1970s, and people seem to want to forget that.
Well, I've seen statistics where, like the Welsh mine closures, they started running out of coal in around the 30s.
Oh yeah, it's all very complicated, but the problem is that nationalisation in Britain only happened when industries failed. So the state basically only took on failing industries. And then everyone said, "Oh, you have all these failing industries under government control." Well, that's why they were under government control. So it's not surprised that government control and industry failure were synonymous.
Yeah, it's a chicken and egg question, isn't it?
It is. And it's like, I've heard time and again that British Rail could have been quite successful under the government if the government had allowed them to operate as a regular company, borrow money, and operate as a business. But they didn't.
Yeah. If we were Germans, the British Rail would have run on time, wouldn't they?
Well, no, I mean, and it's the same with British Telecom. I actually knew a telecom engineer who, before the advent of mobile phones, was telling me about these devices which were mobile phones and how British Telecom had the technology, but the government refused to let them do it because they were ideologically opposed to a national industry having a monopoly.
If only that were true.
No, at the time it was true that there was an ideology in the government which said, "Oh well, and it was the same with cable rollout."
Yeah, I do not forget B Sky B though.
Yeah, yes, but that was after. This is my point. Before that, the government wouldn't let BT do a cable rollout. It wouldn't let them do mobile phones because it didn't want a national monopoly doing these things. It wanted the market to do it. And that was purely ideological.
Well, an awful lot of things are ideological. But I think Modwayne's fell asleep, so we need to wake him up.
I'm still here, mate. I'm still here.
I don't want this to be too Anglo-centric.
Well, no, that it is. Topics for English, British, Scottish.
Let's talk at the European Union and the Euro Union. Yeah? The European Union was set up in the Treaty of Rome.
Yeah.
No. Was that the Union? I thought that was the economic community was set up in
it was the emergence of the political union, at least.
Yeah, that's the Treaty of Rome, and not all countries were part of it. I think the UK wasn't even part of the original group, but I'm not quite sure about that one.
Sorry, you'll have to put years on it for me to understand.
Oh, the Treaty of Rome was pre 1992. I know that.
Yeah,
yeah, but that's modern. I'm going back to the.
I think it's.
Sorry, ancient one.
Yeah. Yeah. What's his stream called? Old fart and older fart.
Yeah.
I'm the older fart. I was born in the 60s, and therefore that's my famous.
The Treaty of Rome was in 1957.
Yes, thank you. So that was not even the economic community. That's the
treaty to create the European Union, and the idea of the European Union at that time was to increase.
It wasn't a union in that time. We joined the European Economic Community in 1973.
It was the treaty on the functioning of the European Union.
But it was still the European Economic Community in 1973.
This was based to prevent. Basically, this was the second form of NATO, so to speak. This was based to create a more stable Europe. But it wasn't planned as just a European economic union, though it was not so much. EEC indeed. It wasn't supposed to be a European Union as an economic unit, but it was to look at it all together. So to make safety and trade amongst each other a better thing, and I was signed by
trade.
Yeah, it was a trade union. Yeah,
trade. Thank you. European Economic Union, a community. It wasn't a union.
Well, I mean, before that, it was the coal and steel union, wasn't it, or something like that?
Yeah.
But okay, this was started by a bunch of countries. Italy, obviously, being one of them. Belgium.
Okay, so the wiki says the Treaty of Rome brought about the creation of the European Economic Community.
Yeah,
the European Union.
Just a minute. I'm so sorry for any Americans in the chat because this is going to be boring, boys.
No, because they should be pissing themselves laughing.
Well, only at our downfall, yeah.
But it's basically the first step to the European Union.
Yes, it was the first step, but the point is you can't shortcut the history.
Well, I think the presidents of the EU have shortcut the history, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think they have, ever since 1950, I can't remember what it was, 1956, something like that. They said that we should proceed slowly and only take away the rights carefully so that the citizens don't realise they're being taken away.
Well, if we look at the EEC, and this is also what Renovatio said, the EEC was basically meant as a trade union and a safeguard for the safety of Europe, so that a third world war would not start in Europe. And that eventually turned into the European community, and I think it was in Maastricht. Can't remember now. But okay, that was at the end of the 20th century. And that's when all the problems actually kind of started.
I think these problems started in the 19th century, but hey ho. Bloody Bismarck.
No, that wasn't that bad.
Well, Bismarck, the Franco-Prussian War, the French using the German to suppress the Paris Commune.
Yes. Well, I'm not saying it was good, but I'm not quite sure if it was that. I mean, I'm not sure they had that much of an impact, to be honest.
Well, the whole reason I was always against the EU is because I saw the measures they were taking against the rest of the countries.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you had the French that were restricting their dairy and agricultural products. And recently I heard, what was it? Anybody know V Stream?
Of course we know V. My favourite Romanian these days.
The squeaky gypsy, yeah. He was talking about the French forestry commissions.
Do they have forests in France? I thought they had mountains.
No, they don't have forests in France. They have forests in Romania.
Oh, sorry.
And that's the whole point.
Yeah. Well, they do have a few forests in France. Come on.
Yeah, they've got the Black Forest.
Yeah. Well, no, that's Germany, isn't it?
No, I'm joking.
But the thing is, and this is where you can see that the EEC turned into the EU, etc., etc. The problem with that was not so much that the ideas were there, but basically it brought back Bolshevism into Europe. And I know there are people who ironically say, "Oh, well, yeah, it's the United, what was it? The EU SSR, the European United Socialist States State Republic." No, I'm crap with that. EU SSR sounds better. But unfortunately, everything that the United Nations of Europe are doing, the EU is doing, is indeed capitalism, communism, is indeed Bolshevism. Because the leaders of the European Union have nothing to do with the people the European people vote into power.
I know. This is the trouble because, I mean, I hate to go all tinfoil hat on everyone, but the European Union is actually run by corporate lobby groups.
And bureaucrats. Yeah.
All government is run.
Well, they dictate to the presidents what they want. The presidents make up the rules. And the MEP...
When you say dictate, pay?
They persuade them, let's say. They persuade the presidents to vote to make up these rules.
Or they buy them.
Let's say Articles 11 and 13. You can imagine that the big boys like Sony and EMI or whoever are pushing for this thing. And all the MEPs have to do is say, yes, I agree, or I abstain. You know, you cannot deny a ruling. You cannot amend a ruling. You can only say, yes, I agree, or no, I'm sorry, I can't.
They did introduce amendments during the voting for the articles.
They didn't. All they do is they can vote to reject the article. And then what happens is they go away, they rewrite the article, and they represent.
For example, the European Union comes up with a treaty to make with the Ukraine, and it allows its citizens to vote on it. And the Netherlands, basically, the Dutch people basically reject it. They don't like it. They don't want it. And therefore, they get another referendum to say what they feel because, well, yeah, no, you have to vote for it. And the second referendum, again, the Dutch people are like, yeah, no, we don't want this. We're not going to go aboard with it. So we get a third referendum on basically the same deal. They've changed things. No, they've not changed anything significant anyway. But yeah, the third time they win. And that's the last time they have to ask about the Ukrainian deal because, well, you agreed, didn't you?
Well, the French have been ignored twice in referenda.
We win.
And
Everybody.
And for the British,
Everybody.
was it the Maastricht Treaty that was taken away? We rejected the Maastricht Treaty, if I'm right.
Yeah, you did.
They went away, they rewrote it as the Treaty of Lisbon.
No, Lisbon is 2009. Maastricht is end of the 20th century.
Yeah. Yeah,
because Maastricht was under Thatcher.
Yeah.
Well, no, it was under John Major, if I remember.
No, it was under Thatcher.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Maastricht was in the 90s, if I'm correct.
92.
90. There you go.
That sounds like John Major territory to me.
Oh, yeah, okay, maybe I might give you that one.
But if I remember rightly, Maastricht was rewritten as the Treaty of Lisbon and represented, and we accepted it.
Yeah, which was 5 years later, 10 years later, something like
that. Yeah, I don't have it.
Inherently, it hadn't changed anything. It just got a new name.
Same words, different title.
I would suggest reading the small print. All the evil stuff happens in the small print.
Oh,
yeah, that's the thing. And I mean, for the Ukrainian deal, the European Union was so in favor of the Ukrainian deal, and the Dutch were so against it, that we had 3 referenda in a relatively short time. I mean, the Maastricht-Lisbon Treaty at least had several years between it. The referenda in the Netherlands, we're talking about 3 referenda in roughly 3 years' time. And only when they got the answer they wanted, we were like, oh, okay, we're gone. It's the same what we're seeing now in England, where people are actually calling out to get a people's vote because the previous vote wasn't done by the people, apparently.
Now, the funny thing is that we would probably accept these deals if it wasn't for the protectionist nature of the EU. You know, the anti-competition.
Yeah. And John is furiously typing away. Pure capitalism possible.
I know.
Yeah, you were furiously typing away because we could hear it.
It's hard to type 2 girls, 1 cup, isn't it, John?
Sorry. I don't even know that meme. I'm old.
Yeah, it's just a silly reference. Never mind.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've heard it before, and I didn't understand it.
Yeah, I didn't say lolly. It's okay.
I like lollies, especially strawberry. Oh, not that kind of lolly. Sorry.
I'm going to respond. Michael Keller, it's not so much that they have... It's a lot of votes. It's not the amount of votes that's the problem. I mean, I don't mind getting a vote every month if that's necessary, but I do have a problem that we get a vote on something, and then because the powers that be don't like the outcome of the vote,
we get it again.
Say, oh no, you have to do it again. And again and again until they get the outcome they want. And this is kind of funny because the video I made not too long ago about this is how democracies die, or democracy is dying, or whatever name I gave it, basically talks about how in the Netherlands, at this point in time, we had the House of Lords elections not too long ago. I'm going to call it House of Lords. It's called different in the Netherlands, but you know what I mean when I say House of Lords. And there's an upstart young party that was one of the major winners. And some of the old elite established parties are basically saying, we're not going to work together with you unless you say this, or this, and you take and you distance yourself from other things said by your political leaders. Well, can you imagine that political parties are now demanding of parties they lost to that they do what they want? And the only reason they can do it in the Netherlands is because it's being done all over Europe. It's done by the fucking European Union. I mean, Guy Verhofstadt is one of the main voices of the European Union. He barely got into the European Union to begin with.
Guy is a failed politician anyway, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a very much failed politician. But he only got to the position where he is because of backbenching. I mean, the dude had less than 11,000 votes from Belgium to get into European Union's politics.
An attack. The first thing a government will do is trying to restrict the gun rights of any populace.
The EU hasn't any control over Switzerland, by the way. So,
and Switzerland has direct democracy, if I'm right.
Yeah, it does.
And that works for the Swiss. But when you...
It does, because in all fairness, in Switzerland, men are still... how do you call it? They have to go for military service. Women do not. And then they made a vote on whether military service should still be compulsory or could be voluntary. And both men and women had the right to vote on that. And most women kept voting for compulsory. Funny enough... Mandatory, thank you. That's a way better word. Funny enough, women don't have to go to mandatory military service, but they are allowed to say that men have to.
But I wonder how many women are feminists in Switzerland.
All of them.
All women are feminist when it suits and not when it doesn't. Sorry, exaggeration, but you know what I mean.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not in favor of women in military service because...
Oh, God, no.
I am. I believe in equality.
Yeah, no,
I'm an equality absolutist.
No.
Yeah. Well, I'm in favor of service, but military service is a different thing.
No, everything.
You have
to everything. There should be no difference, because if there is, you then have to say why.
John, you have to understand that there are different capabilities of men and women.
No, of course there are, but that's not the point. The point is we are battling a fundamentalist ideology of feminism. The only way is to say, okay, equality for everything.
Just a minute. Warp reflection. Okay, so in their own units. And what happens if one of those units go missing?
No. I agree with warped reflection, but those units should have their specific roles. Because, in all fairness, in several countries, Israel and America, they've done tests with this, and full male.
That's exactly what they won't do. Warped reflection. They won't do that. They will abort a mission to make sure that those girls are okay.
But they've done tests with it. In America, they've noticed that if you would put a full man complement against a mixed complement or a full women complement, the full man complement will always outperform them on just about every metric. The man-woman mix will fail. The woman mix will, the full woman mix can succeed, but the male-female mix will fail because women
are always making sure that the women are okay.
Yeah,
and this is the failure of our species. You know, it's protect the women, and I'm sorry to say it, but it is going to happen like that. You know, you have to make sure that the women are okay.
I know, Dave, but that's the point. That is precisely the point. You insist on equality. No ifs, no buts, no special treatment.
You do not know the bar. I get that.
No, because we are fighting an absolutist ideology that claims, despite all the evidence, to want equality. So you go,
but that's
absolutist on their ass, and you say, okay.
That's an enemy within, though.
No, I don't care, because how many enemies without do we actually fight that we need to fight? Bugger all. The point is,
I don't know.
Our threat.
We could go some totalitarian on some Middle Eastern ass right now.
No, but civilizations die from within.
Of course they do.
And that is our existential threat. So you have to address that seriously, and you address it seriously by calling their bluff and say, fine, There should be
equality across the board. The trouble is that you're cutting your own throat doing that, aren't you?
Why? Well, who are we fighting? Who are we fighting? We're an island a long way from any immediate
and you're
threat.
saying that from a rich position. You read 200 years ago and tell me the same thing.
But we're not 200 years ago, and we weren't fighting the same enemy 200 years ago. The feminist existential threat didn't exist 200 years ago, so that's irrelevant.
Feminism existed, and that was...
That's not the point. It wasn't the existential threat it is now.
I disagree with you there.
We've had chivalry for 900 years, so that's a good start, isn't it?
And do you know where that whole concept came from? Not the old chivalry, but the chivalry as the distortion that is.
Yeah, I know from
it comes from
horse husbandry to respect the women's. I know.
Yes, and who invented that?
Oh, I don't know. Some woman on a throne.
Eleanor of Aquitaine. That's who. Bloody women in court. No, seriously.
See,
it's well known.
See, middle class women is always the problem.
Not middle class.
Not middle class.
Very, very, very upper class.
Rich women. Because that's the other funny thing. Rich women had a better life than poor men or women combined.
Of course.
But
that was true when feminism started, and it's true of every single argument of feminism, but that's not the point. The point is, what you say, 200 years ago, feminism was a threat. No, because we're still here 200 years later. I'm talking about the threat we face now, and how do you tackle a lying ideology that claims it wants equality and clearly wants supremacy? You call their bluff, and you go extreme on their ass and say, right.
You just tell them no.
No, you don't. You said people will give women special treatment.
Yeah, but there is a time when
but.
No. If you're going to interrupt, then that's that's up to you. But if you want to curb this, then you have to turn around. You have to say no. You have to treat them like children.
Who's who? Who is this we?
Well, let's start with feminists, and then
No. You said we will have to turn around and say no. Who is we?
The general public with the common sense.
Well,
it doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. It's not
okay.
No.
Okay.
That's why minorities wield power, because they wield power because they're the ones who are organised.
When you have an entitled nation of cat-loving women, in their middle ages, let's say, who regret certain choices they made in life.
Oh my God, this is a cartoon.
Well, yeah, living life right now is a bit of a cartoon, to be honest.
Welcome to Clown World.
Honk, honk. I mean, this was never the dream any of us were sold when we were kids, is it?
The point is, we are facing a very powerful government-funded pressure group. How do you tackle them? You tackle them by calling their bluff.
I would prefer to take away their power, but yeah, if you want to call
No, you don't take away their power because they are the power.
Look at tonight's election results.
Yeah.
The power is shifting.
No. Who made the most gains? The Greens and the Liberals, the two most toxic of the parties.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to see that the Tories and Labour aren't.
I was very worried that Labour would make a big stride this time around. So I'm thankful I was wrong on that one.
Well, I'm glad that Labour didn't. I agree with you. But in all fairness, the Greens, are they that much better?
No, the Greens are the worst.
It was our local elections for our local councillors.
The Greens are the most mental.
Mm-hmm.
They make Labour seem reasonable.
Oh, or tree hugging hippies. I know.
No, they are the most extreme in terms of
I think
what you might call communism.
I think I might have a line on the public mindset is that anyone but the established parties right now. It's just that a lot of them have put their faith in the wrong.
Well, no. You see, the thing is, right. Half the people wanted to leave, and half the people wanted to remain.
Yeah.
So the people who wanted to leave looked for a way to protest the government towards leaving parties, which wasn't. They didn't have a lot of choice because UKIP didn't have that many candidates.
Just a minute, John. You carry on, right? Brexit Party had no candidates.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's what I was literally about to say.
Hang on. The next one is independents are powerless. Yeah? And UKIP right now are poisonous.
Well, and they didn't have candidates, so you couldn't vote for someone who didn't stand.
1,400 candidates.
You have to contextualise that with the number of seats.
Well, I mean, personally, I did not have a UKIP candidate in my constituency.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
I had to spoil my ballot.
Yeah. So can I make my point, because I was literally going to say these things?
Please carry on.
So the point is this: people were fed up with the Conservatives and Labour, but they weren't all fed up in the same direction. Well, so those people who wanted to vote against them because they want a Brexit had no one to vote for. Whereas those people who wanted to vote against them because they wanted to remain, Liberal Democrats are the most pro-Remain of all the major parties.
Yeah, that's good.
As are the Greens. So if you're going to vote against Labour and Conservatives, those are the two you vote for on that side.
Well, I think it's, I mean, I saw a poll earlier, which, to be honest, it amazed me. I said to my dad earlier, I said, I will be interested to see the results of the spoiled ballots. Now, in 2015's local elections, there was 1% spoiled ballots across the country.
Mm-hmm.
This year, 39% were spoiled ballots.
39?
39.
Yeah, none of the above. Which means that none of the parties standing represented what people wanted to vote for.
Well, it gives a very, very clear message to our Conservative government, doesn't it?
Well, no, because unfortunately, until there is someone who can represent those voters, there is no incentive for the party to change, because first past the post means you only have to win.
Theresa May has her hooks on that throne. There's no way she's moving.
Guys, I am
Sorry, Madwayne.
No. I'm enjoying your talks, but I'm going to be a bastard, because the whole idea was to do this stream a little bit shorter than normal, so to speak. Okay. And you guys were having a great talk, and at one point I would like to continue this, but we've been at it for almost 2 hours now, and usually, and usually 2 hours. So
old man has to sleep. I understand.
Old fart and all that.
Thank you very much for the invite, Madwayne.
Yeah, you're more than welcome, mate. You're one of the steady followers anyway, and everyone I've said you're welcome to join. If you have something to say, you're more than welcome to join. Sorry.
It's been great. But
I was quiet most of the time because I liked the talks that you were having. I dropped in a few points here and there, but see, I'm only here as a host.
No, we can bitch at each other in the comments. It's okay.
No, listen, you're welcome to join in at any time. That's not the point. But the point is, we've been at it for almost 2 hours.
Yep. And it's been fun. So thank you very much for the invite. Take care of yourself.
You're more than welcome. Davey, do you have your own channel, by the way?
I do, but I don't put anything on it.
Right, okay, there's that. And I don't have to plug you. That's good. John, you have any last words? Okay. In that case, I would like to thank every one of you to come that was here tonight and talked on the chat. The chat was very active tonight. That was fun as well. And I am going to call it quits again. Oh, for fuck's sake. Yes, let's do a short live stream, not too long, so it has rewatchable values. For fuck's sake.
Good night, lads. Good night.
Anyway, wait a second, Davey. Let's first go offline before you leave, mate.
Very well.
But thank you, everyone. Warped, Anitak, Renovatio. Always nice to see a new name, so I hope to see you again soon.
He has been in the chat a few times, just very rarely.
I'm crap with remembering. And Michael Keller, obviously. Thank you, everyone, and I hope to see you all next time. And I think they want to join us next time, and at least want you to join us next time. And
microphones, you plebs.
Yeah, I'm just going to stop broadcasting now.